Welcome, listeners, to our second installment of the Lambert Connected podcast series. This is Amanda Thrower coming to you from Lambert High School, and I'm super excited to have with me in the booth today several special guests. We have Dr. Michelle Dugan, who is our Director of Communications for Forsyth County Schools. Hello, Ms. Dugan.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. We also have two of our Board of Education members. We have Board Chairman Mr. Mike Valdes and Tricia Hoyes, who are here with us to talk about E-SPLOST.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be with you guys.
Well, we're excited to jump into this topic today so that parents and families in the Lambert Connected community of schools can have a better understanding of what E-SPLOST is and how it will directly impact their children as they matriculate through the Lambert Connected schools. So again, thank y'all for being here, and we're going to jump into some questions about E-SPLOST. All right, so starting off, for those who may not be familiar, what exactly is E-SPLOST and why is it such an important funding source for our schools?
Yeah, I can take that one. So E-SPLOST is what people and nerds like me call a consumption tax. So basically it's a sales tax. It's not an additional tax. It's something that's been in existence here in the county for quite some time. We're on iteration number 6, which is about 24 years worth of E-SPLOST. And the question now is, will there be iteration number 7? So basically what it means is that every time someone spends $1 here in the county on anything they spend it on, a penny of that dollar goes towards your school system's capital expenditures. So buildings, maintenance, facilities, doesn't go toward people, operations, and maintenance, but the physical infrastructure of the school system.
Great. And we know that our schools can't operate without those infrastructures, so that's super important funding. Can you tell us what are some of the biggest successes from previous E-SPLOST initiatives?
I would say some obvious big successes were the new Midway that we just opened. They also opened an addition at Lakeside, and we also have some extremely extensive lifestyle upgrades from HVAC to flooring and painting and furniture. And I know Lambert is receiving some of those upgrades this year from E-SPLOST 6 with the HVACs.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, there's also a ripple effect that happens. So we built the new Midway with E-SPLOST dollars. It's 100% cash, no debt for the school system. The old Midway, we were able to effectively donate it to the sheriff's office, and now they have, a state-of-the-art training center, and it just increases the security presence, right in the heart of our school system. So that's another, benefit or side effect of E-SPLOST.
Fantastic. And how do we ensure transparency and accountability so families know that these dollars are being used wisely?
Yeah, so unlike other forms of taxation, E-SPLOST comes with a list of projects. So right up front, we tell you, hey, we want you to vote for this, and these are all the projects that we're going to deliver. So up on our school system website, there's a list of projects, and I think we'll get into some of that here throughout the course of the podcast. But it's very transparent in that sense, and there's regular updates throughout the life cycle of E-SPLOST where we're giving feedback to the community, and there's various levels of approval and oversight. So I can tell you that our current E-SPLOST, which is coming to its conclusion, we've delivered or are in the process of delivering every project on that list. So it's not one of these things where we're promising things and a chunk of it doesn't get delivered. We work very hard, our staff works very hard to deliver everything that's on that list of promises.
Fantastic. And you mentioned Midway and expansions to Lakeside. Can you tell our listeners from the Lambert community an example of an E-SPLOST project that directly benefited students in our cluster?
I would say the safety and security features that are ongoing are a great benefit for the students here at Lambert, but also the HVAC, the life cycle upgrades. Those are making sure our students are cool when it's hot outside. That directly impacts them.
Yeah, and Tricia, I'll jump in on that as well. We all know that students can't learn if they're not comfortable. So speaking to HVAC, speaking to those facilities, it's also helped us to keep up with growth in a fiscally responsible way, right? So Mike, I'll invite you in a moment to talk about who pays for E-SPLOST, who helps to pay it, because it's not just our homeowners, our taxpayers, it's anybody who's making a purchase in Forsyth County. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and there's some projects that E-SPLOST is going to deliver or has delivered, which are less, front and center or less, fancy to talk about. I mean, things like hand dryers, water heaters, water fountains, computers, laptops, things like that. And then there's things that are, right here in Lambert that are more obvious and more fancy, like the culinary arts dining room, our healthcare science and biotech labs, our CTAE computer labs have been upgraded. And these are all things that are paid through E-SPLOST. Now, the good thing about E-SPLOST is, the school system has maybe three primary forms of income, right? The first is state contributions, which is state taxes, state funds that are paid into our school system, and that's about 45% of our budget. The next is local taxation or property taxes, which is about 55% of our budget. The good thing about E-SPLOST being the third is that 40% or so, 35 to 40% of E-SPLOST funds are actually paid for by people that don't live here. So that's a direct offset to the residential taxpayer, because without these E-SPLOST funds, there's only two other places to get the funds that are needed for these necessary projects, and it's more than likely going to come from the residential taxpayer.
Fantastic. Can you, Michelle, maybe tell us what direct impact, as we look ahead to E-SPLOST 7 that our voters will vote for in early November, can you tell us what that particular E-SPLOST, the impact that will have on families in the Lambert connected community of schools?
Yeah, and as Mike mentioned earlier, those E-SPLOST previous projects that have been completed or are in the process of being completed have directly impacted the Lambert community. I mean, I'm thinking back to E-SPLOST 6 for Lambert specifically. There were parking lot improvements, bathroom improvements, network gear refreshes, school store upgrades, CTAE, and that, of course, is true for South Middle and Riverwatch and our elementaries as well. For example, South Forsyth Middle had bleacher replacements, which was well needed in SPLOST 6. Our elementary schools had a lot of support in HVAC and, again, their network gear refreshes. Looking forward to SPLOST 7, speaking to the transparency you mentioned and asked about earlier, those project lists are out, and they're in three different categories. The highest category being our critical needs, the things that we need to get done in order to keep these buildings safe, secure, continue to improve them so that our students can get the benefits of learning in a quality environment. Some specific things for Lambert, and probably most important to the high school, is going to be hopefully increasing the capacity of Lambert High School. So rather than say the cost of a new building, which as we all know right now is astronomical compared to what it's been in the past, by increasing or adding an addition to Lambert High School, that means your families that are districted to Lambert can stay in the Lambert community. Beyond that, there's CTAE options for upgrades at our middle and elementary schools. There's fine arts expansions and refreshes. And then for all of our littlest learners and our high schools, we're looking at adding turf areas. So for our elementary schools, that means an allotment for turf would go to each elementary school in the district to be used as appropriate at that elementary school so that our kids can have more opportunities to be outside, to be playing with their friends, and just spend those unfortunate inclement weather days won't so much take them away when those fields are muddy.
I'll also add, I do believe the baseball and softball fields are going to get turf also.
And what's great about that is it also impacts not just those fields, but also our fine arts. Our marching band can use a turfed area, and other organizations or fine arts or clubs can be on a turf field. I don't know if you've ever worked with a baseball coach, but they don't want you on your non-turf field because those lines are very particular. It takes a lot of care and a lot of money to upkeep those grass fields. And so by turfing those areas, really keeping in line with our surrounding districts, to make sure that our kids have optimal use of those spaces for everybody throughout the year.
Yeah, and another thing to consider is, our facilities in this part of the county, they're aging. They're amongst the oldest schools in the system, and we've got to keep these schools technologically relevant. So a big part of E-SPLOST 7 is major technology CTAE upgrades throughout the schools, elementaries, middles, and high schools, to keep those schools at the forefront of technology and have our kids, leading the pack in terms of what they know how to do on technology.
All of those things sound wonderful. I'm biased as the principal of Lambert. I'm especially excited about the opportunity to potentially expand our campus to better meet the needs of our growing population. We currently, as y'all know, have 2 sets of modulars on campus, and those serve us well, but obviously they are not as ideal as having everyone in a brick and mortar classroom that is contained within the footprint of our building for safety reasons. So that, as a parent and principal, sounds like a super exciting prospect and hope for E-SPLOST. For a parent wondering, how will this affect my child's day-to-day experience, what would you say?
I would say it's going to improve it. I mean, just reducing our reliance on modulars, right? We know that's going to improve the student environment. It's going to improve safety. It's better for these kids to be inside a building than to be out in a modular. And we take enormous steps to keep those things safe, but still that's going to improve their day-to-day. Obviously, having the latest technology, having the newest technology, that's going to improve their learning environment as well. And, the less glamorous things like, HVAC upgrades, life cycle upgrades, locker upgrades, cabinetry, toilets, this type of stuff. It may not be, the most glamorous thing on the list, but I think that's, it does make their life a little better in the day-to-day. And I would say probably the single largest benefit of this proposed E-SPLOST is we're going to eliminate a whole bunch of redistricting through additions at various high schools and various middle schools. This is going to keep our families where they're at, where they're comfortable, and add that to reducing our reliance on modulars. And I think, you're taking big strides to improve the student experience.
I would say, too, I know we are all parents of Forsyth County Schools students in this room, and one of the things that sits heavy on my heart as a parent and as an employee is safety. And there is an incredible dedication for safety upgrades and infrastructure upgrades that support safety. So as far as day-to-day, it is our job, and we are tasked with keeping our children safe. But when it comes to this particular E-SPLOST, I do see the impact day to day of students feeling safe in their schools, and again, reducing the need for modular units at our larger schools in particular.
Great. And Michelle, what questions do you most often hear from parents about E-SPLOST in your position, and how do you answer them?
We've had great experiences engaging our families at LSC meetings, PTO meetings, always willing to come out, Superintendent Young and our Chief Facilities Officer, Matt Wark, to answer questions about E-SPLOST. From a communication standpoint, I would say the question I get most often are twofold. One, what is E-SPLOST, and is it different than the other SPLOST we've heard about? And another question we get is this a new tax? So for the first one, E-SPLOST specifically addresses and informs education. So it's educational special purpose local option sales tax. Again, as Mike mentioned earlier, it's that penny sales tax, which is a continuation of the penny sales tax that has been in place for several years at this point. And so no, the answer is it's not a new tax either. It is a continuation, but it is different. So there are other SPLOST out there. There are SPLOST specific to transportation. You may have seen that language before on ballots or in the community. And E-SPLOST is something that our community support has made possible to fund all these critical capital projects like our new schools, like our additions to relieve overcrowding, our safety improvements, and so on. So we do share that information with families, and we have a website with some frequently asked questions that we can share as well.
Great. And as a resident in the Lambert community of schools, a homeowner, have you heard, maybe Mike or Tricia, from families who have moved to the area specifically for our schools? And how does the E-SPLOST investment help maintain that standard of excellence for our homeowners?
Well, it really helps keep our schools state of the art and being the leading example for the state.
So you've mentioned so many of the benefits of E-SPLOST and why we need this to pass, but we also know that this isn't a huge year at the polls. There's not a lot of big ticket items on the ballot, which can keep people from making it a priority to get out and vote. But tell us, what happens if E-SPLOST doesn't pass?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the school system has 3 principal sources of funding. So if we were to lose one of those 3, which is, one of the largest ones, that means that these projects, which are, they're necessities. These are not luxury items. These are not wish list items. These are things that we need to keep our schools performing at the level that our community expects. If we don't have E-SPLOST dollars to pay for that, then we'll have to go to our general budget, our general sources of revenue. And then, ultimately that ends up on the residential taxpayer primarily, because there's restrictions on what state funds can be used for. And in this county, Forsyth County, we have an issue where our tax base is 85% residential and 15% commercial. So unfortunately, the residential taxpayer bears the brunt of that.
Is it fair, Mike, would you say that an E-SPLOST passing or a continuation of a penny sales tax would really assure our families or keep in place the tax protections that are currently afforded them, such as a 65 and over exemption and so on?
Yeah, I think E-SPLOST is a critical component to the overall taxation structure that we've been able to implement here over the last few years. You know, this was the first year where we had a 4% homestead exemption, which the school system self-imposed. We have our 65 and older full abatement for senior citizens. We're one of the only school systems in the state that offer both of those things. We've been able to lower our millage rate 3 times over the last few years. So, I mean, we've really taken big steps, you know, even in controlling spending. This year, our locally controlled expenditures increased only by 1.5%, which is half the rate of inflation. So E-SPLOST we're paying down debt at record rates. We're not taking on new debt. As soon as we pay off all of our existing debt in early 2030, that's another huge cut to the millage rate. So E-SPLOST is a huge part of that. If we lose that critical revenue stream, then those other things start to get a little bit shaky.
So with it being so critical for our families who really want to support the initiative, what's the best way for them to get involved and to help spread the word?
Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. If you're on social media, share Forsyth County Facebook posts, Instagrams. Just word of mouth is really important to get out the message.
Yeah, it really is just that community networking, telling your friends the importance of this, you know, whether you go to church, whether you go to temple, wherever you're congregating, you know, let your friends know there. Our school system drives a lot of value in this county, and the taxpayer has, you know, up to now has always approved E-SPLOST, and I think it's because they see the value in that. And we continue to perform at very high levels, and we continue to have the lowest cost per pupil of any large school system in the state, and one of the lowest in the state, period. So there, you know, the average person here is getting a whole lot of bang for their educational buck in Forsyth County.
Yeah, I would say we continue to be incredibly proud of the cost-effective but high-quality education that we do offer to our students and that our families rightfully expect of our schools in Forsyth and obviously right here in the Lambert cluster. So definitely sharing the information. November 4th is the vote. That would be an opportunity to share your thoughts on the E-SPLOST, and we do have a website as well.
Well, as someone who, again, has lived in the Lambert community for 15 years, all 3 of my children either have gone through K-12 or will, based on the 3 that I've got. There's no place I'd rather be raising my children or sending them to school, and I certainly hope that we are able to maintain this standard of excellence through E-SPLOST. To sum us up, would each of you just briefly share what is one message you'd like every Forsyth County family to take away when they think about E-SPLOST?
As people come through our county, 30 to 40% of the E-SPLOST money is coming from people who don't live in our county. They're passing through. And as a taxpayer, that's nice to know that I'm not carrying all of that as a taxpayer and a resident.
Yeah, I would say, you know, just touching on what some of us have already said during these minutes here. I moved to Georgia in 2012. I moved to Forsyth County specifically for the school system. And I feel based on what I pay each year in taxes and to put 3 kids through the school system, I would be paying a fortune to go to a private school, and it probably wouldn't have the quality of education that we're getting here. And E-SPLOST is a critical part of keeping these schools relevant in that way. But from the fiscal side, E-SPLOST is a critical part in allowing us to do a lot of other things to reduce the burden on the residential taxpayer, and that's a big priority for us.
And I would just offer to invite our families to get involved and to ask questions and to reach out to your board members or touch base with your school's principal, join your LSE, your PTO, other organizations that help to support the work of schools, just to be a part of it. Our best partners are our parents, and they help us be better for our students. So as questions arise or information is needed, I mean, that's one of the things I'm proudest about, to work in Forsyth County Schools, but also to have my children here. If there are questions, you can also go to
Well, thank you so much. While I have been your proud host today as the principal of Lambert, I'm also very fortunate to work alongside my fellow principals in the Lambert cluster, Miss Angela Perry from Brookwood, Miss Alyssa DeGlamberto from Johns Creek, Brian Nelson from Sharon Elementary, Amber Lamb from Settles Bridge, Kim White at Riverwatch, and Liz Tuck at South Middle. They are just a phenomenal team to work alongside, and we love working together to make sure that the K-12 experience for our students is premier and what we would want for our own children. So to our guests, thank you so much for joining us today and providing all of these insights. And to our listeners, and please just remember to mark your calendars for November 4th to get out and vote. Thank you so much. And remember to like and subscribe to our series. We will have more coming throughout this school year.